question 4, where he says, "Thank you. Could you explain the basic principles behind the ritual which we perform to initiate the contact and what I would call the basic white magical rituals, principles of protection and other principles? Could you please do this?" Ra says, "Due to your avenue of question, we perceive the appropriateness of inclusion of the cause of this instrument's transitory vital energy distortion. The cause is a bias towards the yearning for expression of devotion of the one creator in group worship." So, okay, so let's get the land prepared for this. So Don is asking, what are the principles behind the rituals of white magic that we make for initiating this contact? It's a good question, just to see, how does this work, Ra? How does the ritual that we perform to initiate this contact with you refers to the white magical rituals that we are so used to in Western occultist magic? The principles of protection and other principles. This is to initiate contact with entities, right? And Ra says that, in essence, I'll just try to interpret and translate some of what they said here. I think they want to use Carla, right? Because they say, "Due to your avenue of question, we perceive the appropriateness of inclusion of the cause of this instrument's transitory vital energy distortion." Meaning that because of the type of question that you're asking, we're going to include what Carla, in essence, has in her to contribute or ask, need, necessitate from the magical ritual. Okay, so what does Carla ask for? The cause of is a bias towards the yearning for expression of devotion of the one creator in group worship. So this is speaking to Carla's penchant, bias, predilection of how to connect with source, to use a new age language. How to connect with source. And so her way of connecting with source or with the one creator was in group worship. This is church, for those of you who know this kind of spiel of our ancient religion of Christianity. So Ra continues and says, "This entity was yearning for this protection both consciously in that it responds to the accoutrements of this expression, the ritual, the colors, and their meanings as given by the distortion system of what you call the church, the song of praise and the combined prayers of thanksgiving, and, most of all, that which may be seen to be most centrally magical, the intake of that food which is not of this dimension, but has been transmuted into metaphysical nourishment in what this distortion of expression calls the Holy Communion." So, what does it all mean, and how can we use this for our benefit, for our understanding? Well, let's take it this way. Remember, they're talking about the specific question of Don about how they initiated contact with Ra due to these rituals. How does this polish or tunes in better with the communication with Ra? Let me give you the underlying mechanism, and then we can explore this question. Okay, that it'll be like examining the mechanics of it and then seeing how it works in this particular group session, which is Carla, Don, and Jim. So the mechanism, as far as I can understand it, is that there must be a pure devotion to worshiping the one creator. This is one way of putting it, and I'm sure the words are going to elicit all sorts of images in all of your minds. So those images are not particular. I correct myself. They are particular to you, but they are not particular to the process of initiation, say, of worshiping with the one Creator. And so we have different practices. These practices are, say, we subscribe to them by whatever process we have. If we have a strong foundation of worshiping the Creator, which I don't like the word worship, and I don't really like the word creator that much, to be honest. I would rather say the love for self, and even that sounds, but the love for the oneself, okay, which is you and me, the presence of awareness, the consciousness, the infinite consciousness that we're all part of. All words inevitably fall into one category or another of provoking a sort of image of, you think that is the one thing, but how can you be so sure? And this is the paradigm that we're facing right now, at least my generation, who didn't grow up with church and a religion, or as I always say, we didn't have the means for which to really relate to the spiritual connection that we all have. And so I, for one, don't have rituals. I don't have any worshiping specific. If that's good or bad, I don't know. I guess I'm not really good for contacting Ra, but there needs to be a mechanism in which you really you open that gateway to intelligent infinity, which is really the disassociation of yourself as a separate being and connecting with pure consciousness. That's it, no matter how you do it. So that is the mechanism. Okay, you have to have that portal into the appreciation, the love, the feeling of oneness. I think that's it. The feeling of oneness, that feeling of peace and harmony with your own reality. And so Carla's way was, as Ross says, this entity was yearning for this protection, both consciously in that it responds to the accoutrements of this expression. These accoutrements are the chalice or the cup that they had there, the Bible, and the incense. These are things that provoked in her a sense of protection, because she feels like, okay, the Bible gives me protection because I associate it with Christ. The incense is part of my rituals and stuff, and the chalice is also part of the rituals in church. So she had a huge connection with church. I know church gets a lot of, rightfully, gets a lot of flack for everything that they have done, but it still is a house of worship for those who are pure in heart. So she responded really well to that. So the ritual, the colors, and their meanings as given by the distortion system of what you call the church. See, Ra is calling the distortion system of church. That is, it's, to me, the way I interpret Ra's vocabulary is speaking about the... Okay, so there is the distortion system of church. Then there is the distortion system of tribal rituals, which again can be pure, and the dancing, the chanting, and worshiping the moon or whatever it is, because they feel a oneness with it. Whatever it is that you associate oneness with. This is why in my eclectic way of understanding reality, my preference is consciousness. Consciousness cannot be denied by anybody. It is a totally scientific approach to revealing the oneness between all of us, and is the purest way of admitting and observing reality. Our forefathers in physics, of course, knew all of this, and they talked about this. They talk about consciousness. Planck said that you cannot get behind consciousness, meaning that that's the wall, that's the end. You know, that this is where everything comes out from, consciousness. So I like to use consciousness. If I can worship anything, it's consciousness. And I'm worshiping the whole universe by that, because everything is conscious. And Ra says the one creator. I think that's beautiful, because consciousness is actually the one creator. Nothing comes out of, nothing stands out in reality that doesn't come from consciousness. And so that's my method. Everybody can, you know, have a little deity, or, you know, certain mandalas and whatever it is, crystals and whatnot. Whatever it is that makes them feel in touch with that oneness, with that feeling of oneness. I think that's the key. That's the portal to intelligent infinity. And I think this is what Ra is referring to here. I'm pretty sure this is... I'm not pretty sure. I know. I know inside me. I'm not saying it's, you know, it's the way. So, okay, so where was I? So the distortion system that we call the church, the song of praise, and the combined prayers of thanksgiving, most of all, that which may be seen to be the most centrally magical. See, this is the communion. This is the integration. This is the yoga. See, yoga means union, from the union of the divine and the mortal, the permanent and the impermanent. That union means that there is no separation. You see what I mean? You know, it's a perceptual thing. And so that is part of the ritual, which I particularly don't like. The intake of the food, which is not of this dimension. This is the Holy Communion, that little, in Spanish we call it hostia, which is a curse word in Spain, I think, hostia. But I don't know how they call it in English. You can see that I never went to church in the United States. So, yes, but it's that little piece of bread, of wheat that you eat, drenched in some wine. I always found it a little bit morbid, you know, to represent blood and flesh. You're going to eat my blood and flesh, but that was the interpretation that we got from Jesus. Jesus is face palming somewhere, like, no, but fine, you know, if that gives you yoga, great. But yeah, that's what they're talking about. But has been transmuted into metaphysical nourishment in what this distortion of expression calls the Holy Communion. You see, another key point here is this transmutation into metaphysical nourishment, as opposed to being just calories for your body. You know, when you are in that state of perfection, union with the divine, then that represents metaphysical nourishment. You don't need any of this. It's just the value that you put in this distortion system that you create. So fasting does the same thing. Fasting has nothing to do with spiritual. Some people, and this is where I would say that it's a very important psychological reaction that we have as humans. You see, follow me on this one. Sometimes when we're looking for something, the ego is the only one looking for something, right? And so the ego says, well, I need to do something so I can become divine, so I can become spiritual. I need to become spiritual, right? So the ego goes and says, oh, yoga, there's a lot of stretches and things, that would get me into the divine. I will do that. Or church, I'll go to church and sing all the hymns and prayers and all this stuff, and I'll become divine and spiritual. And so the ego practices in the hopes that somehow it'll really dawn and it'll shine the light of spirits on it. But it never happens, right? A lot of people get frustrated by their worshiping and all of this stuff, and God doesn't listen to me, God is terrible, and so on. It's the ego always projecting guilty and victim. So all of this is how we go into the mechanical worshipping, the mechanical approach to divinity. And it's not like this. You have to have that pure essence. That pure essence is just really feeling, what that union is. And that is the disconnection of that ego. There is no self. There is no separate self. And as you divest yourself from the belief of the ego, then that shines. And whatever system you used, could have been, like I said, A Course in Miracles, could have been the Bible, could have been the Law of One, could have been Alice in Wonderland. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that is the thing that gives you inspiration. And that produces that metaphysical nourishment that Ra is talking about. That's yoga, is union. So, there's more to say about this right here. Ra says, the subconscious reason, it being the stronger for this yearning, was the awareness that such expression is, when appreciated by an entity as the transmutation in the presence of the one creator, a great protection of the entity as it moves in the path of service to others. So, this is just another way of saying that this subconscious reason was the yearning and the awareness of such expression appreciated by an entity as transmutation in the presence of the one creator. So this is just her mechanism. As far as I can understand it, the way that Carla perceived this protection and this connection with oneness through this means. A great protection of the entity as it moves in the path of service to others. So yeah, it's Ra calls it the clothing yourself in the magical personality, I think it is. And so this is how Carla did it. You get into your protected. You see, there is also now that I'm thinking about this and protection and magical personality and all of this, when you go to a ceremony and you see, that they seal your aura with a specific, like sage and stuff like that. I don't want to speculate, but I do believe that there's a stronger protection by the love of the shaman, the true shaman, of course, that is sealing your aura and it's putting its energy into you. It's like a healer, right? And they do this ritual, and this is meant to protect you. And then, it does put this psychology of the mind when it's getting into something with respect and with surrender and all of this. Then this is why ceremonies, I would say, and I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but true ceremony, let's just put it this way, because the New Age community has brought up a lot of things that I don't consider 100% pure ceremony. But yeah, I digress. The point is that all of these rituals persist. Even in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a lot of rituals. And these rituals are protection, and they do channeling and everything, of course. Not all Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism. So there's a lot of worshiping. And it's all about, the presence of the one. And I think that is the key thing. How do you connect with the presence of the one? Okay, so lastly, in this question, Ra says the principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature is to so configure the stimuli which reach down into the trunk of mind that this arrangement causes the generation of disciplined and purified emotion, or love, which then may be I correct myself, may be both protection and the key to the gateway to intelligent infinity. Here it is. Here's the punchline. Boom. So Ra finally says, this is everything that I've said. This is perfect. Thank you, Ra. It's like the last puzzle piece. So check it out. The principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature, this is, of course, I'll just describe it in bullet points. I would like to connect with my oneness, with the oneness that we all are. And so I will do a ritual, and this ritual will put me in the mindset of this, right? That's what's happening. So the principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature is to so configure the stimuli, okay? We're configuring the setting, okay? Just like when you go to a ceremony, the setting is important. Don't do it in the city, in the streets. Do it in a place where you feel comfortable. It could be the streets, but I don't think anybody would find that a proper setting for connecting. I mean, well, you can even say that, this real hardcore meditators who go into the heart of the city and just sit there. That's another topic. Let me not get into that. That's a pure mastery of the mind. So, this stimuli is the setting, the surroundings. How do you prefer things? You can see, I love this stuff. I love Japanese and Zen arts, and I love the chakras. So they are part of my, let's say, my environment here. I just love it. And I'm heavily into Buddhism, so I love everything, not everything, but many things that are Buddhist by nature or by design. So that stimuli reaches down into the trunk of the mind. The trunk of the mind is, remember, we have the intuition, we have the intellect and the intuition. That intuition is the trunk of the mind. That intuition goes into the subconscious, the personal subconscious, then the planetary subconscious, and the group subconscious or consciousness or levels of mind, whatever you want to call it. It's just deeper and deeper levels until the roots go all the way down to the one creator. So they reach down into the trunk of mind. So this arrangement causes the generation of disciplined and purified emotion or love. That is the feeling in which you say, okay, I feel safe here. I feel completely connected. I feel loved. I feel embraced by whatever it is, God, the universe, source, etc. Which then may be both protection and the key to the gateway to intelligent infinity. You feel safe, you have protection. And then the key to the gateway of intelligent infinity is precisely that. So I don't think I need to go on this anymore. I think it's pretty explicit. So yeah, this is the way in which anybody really, this is the mechanism. And Carla had, of course, a strong association with church and worship and rituals of white magic nature. She was just completely excited about all of that. I actually envy her because, not envy her, but I admire her devotion because that's something I've never had. And if anything, it's just my way of connecting. I mean, I do have to say, and maybe some of you will resonate with this, but me as somebody who, like I said, I didn't grow up in church. I mean, I went to church when I was a kid, but I didn't evolve in church or in any spiritual practice. For me, the perfect way for connecting has always been meditation. And meditation and prayer are precisely the same thing. And I don't really like rituals and activities and physical stuff. I enjoy simply just sitting in silence. And this is why, of course, it's my predilection. Things of the kind like simply sitting in silence, to me is just the most beautiful way I can connect with myself being the oneness that we all are. And so many things. I mean, I can talk about my exploration, just beautiful. But it doesn't involve practices and stuff. And I could do it here, which I love doing it. This is like my little space where I meditate. But I could do it outside too. I could do it anywhere. It's not as strong as when I'm here in the morning, but it does connect for sure with I practice it because it's not something that I access here and then I go into the world. I miss being there. I try to carry this with me everywhere. So anyhow.